public comment, but also the press conference that Chief Story had last week. I won't go through all of it, but there is a statement in my response to that presentation that Chief made on my City Council website under District 4 News and Events. Please go read it. I touch on almost everything that he touched on, on even the three things that are out of our authority, which are at the state level. And I do want to say that in terms of Senate Bill 16, criminal competency determination, it did not fail, it just ran out of time. What's a failure is the structure of the legislature. Okay. And so it's 30 days and it ran out of time. However, and I've talked to Chief Story about this, and I want to make this very clear with the public, as a social worker and as someone who is seeing every day what is happening in our community, I don't take this lightly, and I do support this kind of legislation, but it should have its due diligence. We're literally talking about taking people's civil liberties away, so it should have a due diligence. It should have a significant funding source to meet the gaps that we obviously have in mental health care and substance use treatment facilities, which are very few, and even those have huge waiting lists. And so I do want to say that. And the other thing is that I've been in discussions with advocates around this legislation there is a commission that is out of the New Mexico Supreme Court that is working on this legislation. There's an adjacent advocacy task force that is being formed to advise that creation of that bill as it will come to the legislature in 2025. I am doing everything I can to ensure that Chief Story and some of us are in those conversations as well, that Southern New Mexico does not get left out of that conversation. So please go read my statement. It was well thought out, and even just today I'm having a hard time sort of choosing the words I want to say, because I feel like everything I say in the last especially in the last couple of weeks has been really getting distorted. It comes out of my mouth, then it gets distorted. I've heard it, I've seen it happen to Chief Story, I've seen it happen to many of us, and so it is not in my nature to be super thoughtful and thinking about what I'm going to say. So I just generally speak from the heart. But my thoughts are there on all of those things, including pretrial release and detention, on fentanyl, and on some of the more short-term and localized goals that the chief presented, which I am yet to hear any pushback from any of us. That is not what's happening. We're actually working incredibly well as a new council with our new chief. And I suspect things will move forward. What I have a difficult time with sometimes is that when folks accuse me of not listening, sometimes I think that because I don't just say yes to everything that's being thrown at me, then immediately I'm not listening. That my disagreement immediately means I'm not listening. And I want to push back gently against that, because that's not true. I think about these things really well and thoroughly, and me just saying, yes, let's bring back panhandling ordinance, to me that's not a sentimental disagreement. That is unlawful and unconstitutional, and frankly I think people think of it as this magic solution that will just get rid of all our problems, and frankly that's just not how this works. And but I have really thorough and well thought out ideas that we've been discussing over and over here, and so I would urge, I have yet to hear from the business group that is meeting. I hope they reach out to me. I would love to sit down with them and talk more about their ideas. If they think that in my progressive haze I have missed something and I am not seeing something that we are not doing, I want people to point that out. I would also challenge folks to send me a list of my so-called progressive failed policies that have led us here, and I will review them. I commit to reviewing them and to bringing them back if we need discussion, but please send me a list of those policies that you think I have led on that have failed. I would, like I said, love to review them. So to that point, I'll stop there with that. I also wanted to bring up this really important and timely conversation about the type of public dialogue that I have been experiencing, definitely in the last couple of weeks, but honestly in the last couple of years. And maybe it's fitting that it's also Women's History Month. So happy Women's History Month to all the incredible and really amazing women on this dais, on this staff that lead a bunch of these departments. I respect you all deeply. But I did want to talk about this report that came out recently from the Brennan Center for Justice titled Intimidation of State and Local Office Holders, the Threat to Democracy. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. I apologize in advance. It's a little lengthy, but it's really important because I hear things here that say, well, you signed up for the job. These things are unavoidable. You signed up for the job. Somebody said the Chicken Little thing or whatever was dangerous and you have to deal with it. I'm going to push back on that. I think actually it's incredibly harmful to democracy that we normalize harmful language, threats, especially insults, harassment, those kinds of things should not live in democracy. And just because we ran for office and chose to be here does not mean that I'm going to allow you to use me as your punching bag. That is actually not how democracy works. And I have found myself in the last couple of weeks feeling like I shouldn't speak up on that anymore. Maybe I shouldn't post so much. Maybe I shouldn't do these things. And this report helped me realize that that is actually not what I should be doing. So this report speaks about the big federal things that are happening to federal public officials, which are awful. Like there was Representative Steve Scalise in 2017 was shot. The U.S. Representative Nancy Pelosi's husband was brutally beaten in his home. They speak about those.
Good afternoon, Council.
Yet, over the same period, with far less attention and often little recourse, office holders serving in local and state governments across the country have faced a barrage of intimidating abuse. Threats and attacks constrain how freely office holders interact with constituents, narrow the spectrum of policy positions they feel safe to support, and make them less willing to continue in public service. Unaddressed, the problem stands to endanger not just individual politicians, but more broadly, the free and fair functioning of representative democracy at every level of government. And the kind of abuse that I'm referring to are insults, demeaning, derogatory or offensive comments, gestures, or actions that upset, belittle, or humiliate, which I will say 2 weeks ago I felt like there was an attempt to do that. Harassment, persistent, uninvited behavior, attention, or actions that cause distress, fear, or discomfort, such as stalking. I know members of this council and previous councils have been stalked by members of the public. Threats, explicit or implicit expressions communicating an intention to harm, injure, or cause damage to an individual or others associated with them, implying imminent risk to a person's well-being and safety, and physical attacks, slapping, pushing, subjugation to projectiles, beating, abduction, assassination attempts, or other acts of violence. Those are obviously there's extremes there, but I have, in this job, in the last 4-ish years, have been accused of not being a lawful citizen of this country. I have been accused of being anti-police. I have been accused of many things because I think often people disagree with me and then decide that that means I am anti-something else, that I am then posing a danger to their beliefs. And I highly recommend this report. It is to the public, open to the public, and I also want to say that the way that we fight some of these things, because that will lead to many of us either not running for re-election, which I'm sure many people will be happy with that, but I also think that somebody said, I often take things personal, but yeah, politics is personal to me. Politics is very personal, and that's why I decided to run. And I want to see fair representation in all levels of government. But I think one of the biggest things that we have to do as public officials, community members, business leaders, any other person, is to publicly reject abuse and to not allow that kind of discourse to continue, because it is actually not the way that we will solve the challenges in front of us, and they are many, and we need people. We need people with ideas. We need people who are directly impacted by these challenges to come forth and share their stories and also present solutions. And I want to work with those people. I've never been closed off to that, and I don't want to close myself off because I feel like there are threats to my safety. So, and that includes my mental health safety and all of our mental health safety. Wow, okay, I just wanted to say that, and I will wrap it up there. I'm happy to talk with anybody about this and any other thing. Please, if you're watching, please reach out.